Let's talk about a very interesting topic today, dramatic and emotional language, and how to really make your presentations more interesting and more engaging just by simply changing the type of language and wording that you use in your presentations. So my name is Justin Aquino. For those of you who don't know me, I'm the founder and head coach at Communicator, and I'm joined by my teammate, expert copywriter, Julie Cortez. How's it going, Julie?
Good. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know you don't like the term expert. I saw your Instagram post the other
You
day.
saw that, huh?
But you're an expert to me. So,
Fair enough. Fair enough. I prefer to be humble. And, like I said in that post, it's like, I feel like I'm always learning something. And to me, an expert is somebody who knows everything on a subject matter. And I certainly don't, just like everybody else, I'm learning each and every day. So, but I appreciate the intent.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, absolutely. So I think you have a really good expertise and a really good background when it comes to this topic of dramatic and emotional language, because coming from the advertising and copywriting world, that is a huge factor in persuading audiences to sell a product or to sell an idea or a brand, right? So we want to think about how to utilize some of those principles and apply them into business presentations or day-to-day presentation situations that professionals might be facing. So one question that I wanted to start out with was the different types of emotions, because when we're talking about creating a presentation or a compelling message, we could go in many different directions. What are the major types of emotions that you've found, Julie, that are really effective, seem to really be persuasive and impactful for audiences?
Well, I feel like, we have these different emotions. It's happiness and sad and mad and, a whole frustrated, right? Irritated, annoyed. We have all of these different emotions that we can deal with. But if you look at it from an overarching perspective, they really are lumped into two different categories. One is positive and one is negative. Right? So do you want to elicit some sort of positive reaction from your audience or a negative reaction? And, all in all, if you're giving a presentation or if I'm writing an ad, like I want to be able to connect with my audience, right? I want to just get in there, on an emotional level, because touching on emotional pain points is what sells things. It's what influences people. Right? So that's where I would lump the two different emotions into the things that work best are positive or negative.
Mm-hmm. Right. So like, for example, if I'm giving a positive status update in my presentation, or I want to really convince my audience that there is good news happening, that we are ahead of schedule on a project, or the team is working really hard, those are positive emotions. Right? So I want to use words associated with that. If there's some kind of negative urgency, maybe we are behind schedule or we need more funding, then of course, that's more of a negative state. So how I would do it with positive emotions, I would say things like, I'm very proud of how our team has been performing recently. Or we have had some really exciting positive developments recently in our work, and I'd like to share with you some of those developments, blah, blah, blah. And then I go forward from there. If it's negative, if there's urgency, then I need to convey that through my language. I need to say things like, there's a critical issue that we've discovered, and I want to let everybody in this audience know what that is, because I think it's going to potentially have a negative impact on the outcome of the project. Things like that. And I also think, the issue of the negative emotions is really great that you bring that up, because a lot of times we have a tendency to sugarcoat things when we are presenting and to just kind of play it safe. Whereas if we are willing to have that frank conversation with our audience, that actually builds a lot of trust.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And I think no matter what the subject matter is, like you can still invoke emotion. Like it could be something as boring as numbers, taxes, what have you. It could be super boring, but there's still a way to connect with your audience, whether it be on that positive or negative level, and then of course, if you are bringing up negative stuff, you want to, kind of transform your presentation and get it to a point where it is positive. How can you inspire people to do the things that you want them to do to have that positive outcome?
Yeah, absolutely. I was just researching right before I got on the concept of power words,
Mhm.
which is a concept in copywriting and advertising and marketing in general. And there's a lot of good concepts that we can use in our day-to-day presentations. So one is the concept of you, making things, taking information and personalizing it to the audience specifically. What does this mean for you? What do you need to be aware of? What should you be cognizant of in the information that I'm providing? How is this going to impact your workflow and things of that nature? So the concept of you is how you can create the information in a way that is more urgent and more impactful on the audience. And that's more likely to elicit an emotional response than if you're just talking about it in the third person or kind of from a more objective standpoint.
Yeah, and we do that in copywriting as well. Think even about like a website. If you're writing a website for yourself or for somebody else, typically when people go to write that, if they don't know what they're doing, if they're not a professional advertising copywriter, they're probably going to write the entire thing in I or we, in that first person kind of thing. And you don't want to do that. I mean, the whole narrative is to, flip it, because you want to connect with the audience. So yeah, you're absolutely right. This is how we write for the web or for any sort of advertising or marketing product. It's all about the target audience. It's less about you. It's how the audience is going to benefit from what you have to offer, whether it's on a website and you're selling widgets, or if it's here in a presentation and you're trying to influence people and get them to do something that you want them to do.
Absolutely. Sarah made an interesting comment. She said, in sales, third-party stories sell the best. I think what she's talking about is testimonials, reviews, or case studies, for example, right? And that's certainly the case. I've seen that in my personal experience. I've seen that with clients. Whenever you're trying to justify or reinforce a concept, it's always really good to incorporate external case studies, because I think it takes some of the attention off of yourself as the presenter, which you kind of mentioned, Julie, and put it on something that is more provable and more objective. And I think from an emotional standpoint, the audience is then more likely to put themselves in the shoes of that third party as well. And certainly reviews and testimonials and case studies is very common in the copywriting world.
Yeah, absolutely. Good point, Sarah.
So a couple other power words or power themes. Imagine. This is the idea of kind of an ideal future, something that is new or unexpected potentially, that you want your audience to start thinking about. Imagine that we are able to increase efficiency by X% within the next 6 months. How might we be able to do that? Well, I'll tell you how we can do that. I'm going to lay out a series of projects and a series of tasks that will enable us to achieve that, that type of thing. Talking about the word unique also. I think unique is really good because that draws in their attention. If you label your ideas as unique or different or original, then the audience is more likely to sit up and take notice than if it's just what is expected. Something, again, kind of intense emotions like amazing, any kind of superlative word like that. Amazing, astounding, announcing a breakthrough. I would like to announce to all of you today a breakthrough development in our product development process or our product rollout process, for example. So you can play around with the language in that sense. I think it's just incorporating some of that subjective element into the more objective, dry information.
Great points. So Sarah had a question here. Is there another word or phrase instead of imagine? And that's an excellent question. I will tell you that thesaurus.com is your best friend. All right. So I just did a quick search here, and coming up with imagine, you can use something like, I really want to go for those power words, right? Those emotional words. So I'm seeing envision. That's not the same, it means the same thing, but it's definitely a different word. Fantasize. That's really powerful. Let's see, picture. Yep. Picture this, right? Instead of imagine, it's the same thing. Visualize, conjure up, any of these things would really work. And I know, imagine is used a lot because we know that trick when we're giving presentations. So yeah, feel free to use any of these other words that mean the same thing, but don't repeat the same word over and over again.
Yeah, exactly. And also, I think we talked about this previously, experiment and try different words and different phrases in different presentations and see what kinds of reactions you get. Because also your reactions from your audience will depend on the audience. It depends on your company culture, your team culture, what really stands out to people. Because what is really innovative and different in terms of language in one organizational culture is going to be pretty common in another. So if you're still kind of developing that sense of what works, by all means experiment and see what you find.
Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think, the whole purpose of the imagine concept is really to help paint a picture. And this is what we're trying to do, right? You want to have your audience visualize something, or more so, you want them to feel something. And the best way to get them to do that is to visualize it.
Yes. And so that's a great point, because then that pushes us as presenters to incorporate vivid descriptive language, right? So if I'm trying to get you to imagine something or envision something, I need to do my part in terms of painting that picture in great detail of what that future state would look like. And so one way to get started with that is to think about the 5 senses, sight, sound, etc. And what do people see in that ideal end state? What do they hear? What do they feel? And then describe all of that verbally using your words. That's a really good way to get started with that.
Yeah. You see what Sarah says here? I'm a 1099, so I can try anything I want. That's the fun part.
There you go.
That's hilarious. Yay, 1099s represents. Right there with you. Okay. Yeah. So, what would you say, Justin, if somebody is brand new and they are trying to, since you're the cool communicator, you're the coach about presentations and stuff, what would you say about, what tips would you give to somebody who's first starting out? If you want them to have emotive language in their, or emotional language in their presentations.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I would say several things. First of all, push yourself to get a little bold, okay? And be willing to take risks. Because if you're taking dry, straightforward information in a presentation and you're trying to get that to be more emotionally impactful, that is taking a risk. So you have to be willing, by definition, to take a risk means that there's a potential for failure. You have to be willing to fail a little bit. So think about taking a calculated risk. Now, sometimes you're giving a presentation, it's a very high stakes situation. You don't really want to take that many risks. Okay, fine, fair enough. Try doing it on your own. Try taking the risk with some colleagues, practicing solo or practicing with some friends. Try recording yourself and watching yourself back, but incorporating different types of emotional language. But you do want to push yourself to get more bold and more excited or more passionate, as the case may be. And so that's going to help you to push that. Now, passion is also another key thing. Not everybody is passionate about their message or their presentation, fair enough. But if there's even just one aspect of your work or your industry that you find very exciting or that makes you passionate, you want to incorporate some of that emotional energy into your presentation. And that will come through in your language if you can mentally get into that state more consistently. So yeah. that would be one key thing.
Excellent points. I feel like there's a lot to be said for, getting inside your own head. And this is like a 2-part point, one of which is when you go to write your presentation or form an outline or whatever your process is, I feel like sometimes we're like, oh, I've got to be super creative with this, or, oh, I've got to bring out the emotional language. And I feel like that will stop you if it's not something that comes naturally to you. So my suggestion would be to just go ahead and write it like you normally would, and then go back in and, add in the emotional language, figure out where you can change words and add stories. But you also have to remember, and here's the second point, is that it's not just about having those words in your presentation. you have to feel those words as much. You have to deliver the energy and the passion or the negativity. You can't just have a plain, dry, boring speech and use exciting words, right? You really have to bring the energy yourself to make sure that you are invoking that emotion and ensuring your audience is feeling it as well.
Yep, exactly. Even very boring language can become exciting if you as the presenter or the communicator are excited as you deliver that, right? Another thing I would definitely recommend for people that are just getting started with this process is to think about the end state for the audience. What is the ultimate outcome or the ultimate benefits of the information that you're providing? There are emotions associated with that. So if, thinking 6 months out or 18 months out, if we have implemented these changes that you're recommending, what do we feel? Do we feel a sense of satisfaction, a sense of accomplishment, for example? Those are emotions that you can start to preview in your presentation. If we don't implement some of these changes, again, then what do we feel? We feel like we have lost out on a big opportunity. We feel frustrated because we've lost market share, as the case may be. So you think about those ultimate outcomes, that also helps you to pivot and to think about the emotions that you can incorporate into the messaging.
Excellent points. I feel like it's something too that it doesn't have to be too difficult to do. For example, if you say in your presentation, I like where we're going, whatever you're talking about, right? Just simply switching out the word like with love. I love where we're going. I mean, it just invokes so much more emotion, or instead of should, maybe you use must, there's just so many different things that you can do here, changing up whether it's a verb, an adjective or a noun, anything that you can do to help paint a more vivid picture, I think is really going to help. And even I would say too, if you're using a slide deck, Keynote, PowerPoint, whatever you're using, like don't be afraid to play with that as well. And not just words on a slide or bullet points on a slide, but like images. Images invoke a lot of emotion, and I would be sure to include that in your presentation.
Another good question from Omar, I believe. Is it okay to have a little anxiety before every presentation? Yeah, look, I mean, anxiety, nervousness is totally normal. It's very common. The issue is you just don't want it to completely debilitate you. If it's really interfering with your performance, then it's something to address. But everybody has at least a little bit of nervousness. Very few people have zero feelings. I mean, you'd have to be like totally ice cold, feel absolutely nothing, especially if it's high stakes. I mean, the reason that you're giving a presentation, a webinar, remote, in person, whatever, it's because there's a purpose to it. There's an important message that you're trying to get across, and it has been determined that a simultaneous experience for multiple people all at once is the best way to convey that information. So naturally, there's going to be stakes associated with that. So of course, there's going to be a little bit of nervousness. I shot a video, did a webinar, I think back in late last year sometime, September, October, about stage fright and how to overcome stage fright. It's on the YouTube channel. I'll put the link to the YouTube channel in the chat. But basically 10 ways to overcome that stage fright at the last minute or that nervousness. But yeah, it's very common, breathe, relax your muscles. I recommend you do some exercise the morning of your presentation to kind of release some of that tension. There's other tactics and techniques as well.
Yeah, I've heard from an acting coach before, and he's had some really great recommendations, such as, if you feel all this jittery energy, think about what you can connect with at that point in time. Most likely, whether you're sitting or standing, you can, connect with the floor. So you want to direct that energy through like your big toe. Imagine pushing your big toe into the floor, and that's all you're focusing on at that point in time. I've tried that. It really, really helps. The other thing that I've tried before going into a presentation is, I don't know if you've heard of like this Wonder Woman pose. You can do this, hopefully in private before you go out on stage or in front of an audience of some sort, but try this for 2 minutes. Just there's something about the stance that like instantly gets you focused and gives you confidence. And I found that it's really worked.
Absolutely. Power posing.
Yes.
Classic concept that's been around for a while. I've done that myself. I find that it really helps, not just with presentations, but just in overall confidence, and overall positive energy. And with some of my clients and students, we have them go through that kind of an exercise, and that certainly helps and it benefits them.
Yeah.
In the last couple of minutes, any other questions that anybody has, feel free to put them in the chat or in the Q&A, and we'll make sure to get to them. I did want to go through a couple examples around how to rewrite some messages and associate some more emotional, dramatic language. So let me just share my screen. And Julie, you know, I'd love to get your input here on how you would go about rewriting or rewording some of these phrases, right? So these are like common, typical phrases that a person might incorporate into their presentation. Our new product delivers a 30% efficiency improvement over previous models. So as you look at that, Julie, what stands out? How might you go about making that more emotionally impactful or have more dramatic language?
Sure. Well, from a writer's perspective, I feel like the shorter the sentence is better. So that's always a great place to start. You know, you want to look at what's available to you and what words you could potentially flip out if you want to keep the same sentence structure. So for example, if you're looking at the verbs here or adjectives, how can you jazz this up, right? Is it just one word? Is it instead of, delivers, can you use a more powerful word? Maybe it's unshackles, right? Something different. Or instead of just saying 30% efficiency improvement, what about like a staggering 30% more efficiency, right? Yeah. You want to exaggerate, but not over exaggerate, because then people won't listen to you. They won't trust you. So I would say keep it conversational, keep it authentic, but add more color to it, whether it's one word or more. So Justin, I had a few different ideas here. One of which is, instead of saying our new product, right, because you want to focus more on them, you could say, the product, whatever it is, I don't know. The
X product,
the product delivers a staggering 30% improvement in efficiency. That would be one way. I don't want to talk too fast if you're typing this.
30% improvement in efficiency, right?
You could say the product unshackles a staggering 30% improvement in efficiency.
Unshackle, yep. Got that one.
And then, I like that unshackles word. You could say skyrockets. The product skyrockets over previous models with a staggering 30%.
Skyrockets over previous models with a 30% increase in efficiency or improvement.
Yep.
Right. I like that.
So, it doesn't, there's not an exact science to it. It's just a matter of changing things up, whether it's the verb or the adjective here. And in some cases, a noun, if it's more of a, like a concept or an idea.
Yeah. And it's so simple when you think about it, right? And you see, it doesn't have to be super complicated or super wordy, just to add that extra little bit of flourish, right?
Exactly. Oh, I love the good word, flourish. Good.
Yeah. It's just literally sprinkling some flourish, right? But skyrockets, unshackles. Now that's interesting language. Let's look at one more example here. Okay. We have a 15-year track record of delivering superior returns to our investors.
Yeah. So again, look for the power words. This delivering. What else could you use? How else could you spruce that up? Jazz it up here. So I like unrivaled. And instead of delivered, because everybody can use the word delivered, how about just for 15 years, we have brought unrivaled returns to our investors.
For 15 years, we have brought unrivaled, I like that word, unrivaled returns to our investors. Yeah.
And sometimes, when you're rewriting this, it could even be that it's not just one or two words that you're switching up in your sentence. It could be the entire sentence altogether. Your original sentence may not look anything like your finished product. So keep that in mind. It doesn't have to be an exact replica. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. But you see, it's interesting. You're placing the focus on the verb and the adjective, and there's opportunities there. The basic substantive information is the same, but it's just taking those little moments and seeing what you can do in terms of experimenting with them.
Yeah, Sarah's got a nice line here. Invest with us and be able to chill on the beach within 30 days. Yeah, perfect.
There you
I
go.
can,
Yeah, painting a picture of the ultimate outcome and the benefit. Yeah. All
yeah.
right, excellent. I think this has been super interesting, super helpful. Julie, any other last thoughts or anything else that you would suggest to people to help them to start to incorporate more emotional or intense or dramatic language into their presentations?
Yeah, I would say I want to reiterate that whole part about not just having the emotional language in your presentation, but also exuding it, through your own presentation. Don't make it dry and boring. Nobody wants to listen to just a talking head. Yeah, use your hands, use your body language, use inflection. Anything that you can do to create that emotional connection with the audience, so they can better feel like they know, like, and trust you.
Yes, absolutely. Know, like, and trust is just a great summation of how you should be coming across to your audience to really make that impact. So I want to thank everyone for joining us today. It's been a really good conversation, great questions as well. And look forward to seeing you at the next webinar or live stream soon. Julie, thanks again for joining and for your great insights as always.
You're welcome.
And have a great rest of your day. Take care.
Thanks. Bye, guys.